Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, this show couldn't be more personal. I'm interviewing my father-in-law, Dr. Ron Snee. He is a legend in statistics and Six Sigma. You're going to hear his incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
So as I said in the teaser, this is a personal show for me because I'm interviewing my father-in-law, who is an absolute legend in the world of statistics and Six Sigma. And we're going to learn all about that in a second, but I want to introduce you to the great Dr. Ron Snee. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. It's an honor. And when I met your daughter some quarter of a century ago, she said, "My dad is a pretty big deal." And I said, like, when you say your dad's a big deal, she says, okay, so like everything, the statistical books that you read in college, the textbooks, my dad wrote all those books. So the great Dr. Ron Snee, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's begin at the beginning because you came from humble beginnings.
Yep.
You grew up on a farm.
Grew up on a farm, yes. My parents ran a milk and ice cream company, and but my father loved the farm, and so after he had successfully started the milk and ice cream company, he bought the farm, and that's where his heart was, and that's where I have 2 younger brothers, and that's where all 3 of us grew up, and he thought that really that's a great place to raise boys because they get in less trouble there, and yes, it worked out because he just worked the bejesus out of us. That we couldn't get into trouble.
And that hard work ethic, I think, has paid dividends throughout your legendary career. You wrote a best-selling book a couple years ago. Let's go ahead and put that on the screen. It's My Life Growing Up on the Farm. So when you look back on your life, what was it about the farm experience that set you up for success?
Well, my father kept us very busy, very focused, and made sure success was part of the whole deal. So we just did that, and then one thing led to another, and at one point, which you'll see in the book, he got my brothers and I involved in raising Hampshire sheep, purebred Hampshire sheep, and we showed them around the state. This is Western Pennsylvania, south of Pittsburgh, and we won at county fairs consistently. We would win at county fairs and state fairs and so forth. As a matter of fact, one story I like to tell is that we had a very good ram, and we took him to the state sale. And the previous year, the champion ram had sold for $200. Now, this is back in the early 60s, so, when $200 was $200. So our ram was champion, and so we go to the sale, and I'm in the ring moving the ram around the ring, and of course, I'm hoping he goes for more than $200. I don't want to be embarrassed. So he quickly passed $200 to the auctioneer, and then he went up to $300, and I was really getting excited. And I thought, well, gee, we might get to $500. Well, it didn't happen that way. He stopped at $365, which was the high price at the time.
Sure.
Well, the next year they sold a champion ram for $500. So it's the old story, records are made to be broken. So for 1 year, my brothers and I had the champion at the highest price.
All right, what was life on the farm like? What time did you wake up, and what were your chores in the morning?
We got up at 6. My father made sure we did that, and so we would feed the animals, water them. If there were cows to be milked, they'd be milked. Then we got on the school bus and went to school.
Yes. And if you think about
school bus we caught at 8.
Wow. But if you think about today's generation, and I know you still lecture and teach young people, there's something about the hard work on the farm that it's like nobody's going to do this, nobody's going to get up and do this but me. There was not a, hey, Dad, I'm not feeling good. I've got a little tickle in my throat.
Oh, no, he wouldn't have done that. He'd booted you out of bed anyway. I mean, no, there was none of that. None of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really shaped you for success. Were you always interested in statistics and numbers? When did you find that part of your life?
Well, I was interested in numbers. My mother was an accountant. She's trained as an accountant, and she kept the books for the family business. And so I knew about numbers through her and everything. And then I took a statistics course at Washington Jefferson College, where I did my undergraduate work. And I applied to colleges, and for some reason, I thought I wanted to study statistics. And so I get an assistantship at Rutgers University. And then the second year, first year went okay. Second year, we got a new professor who had been at Swift & Company, had been in industry. And after I took his course called Design Analysis of Experiments, and after about the third lecture, I was just so excited that this was going to be my life's work.
Wow.
And it always has been. And it started with Horace Andrews.
Okay, before we get deeper into your legendary career in statistics, you became a champion wrestler. And I read online this morning that in your senior year, you're undefeated.
Yes.
Well, okay, and so it's not just brains, it's brawn. The discipline that it takes to become a champion wrestler.
It's the same as on the farm. It's the same as on the farm. You have to be disciplined to learn how to the moves and all of that kind of stuff. You had to be disciplined to make your weight, and so it was just like working on a farm. And I enjoyed the sport. I didn't get started in high school until my junior year. I never made the varsity, but I knew I wanted to do that, and so I went to Washington and Jefferson College, and they had a wrestling team. I wrestled every match for 4 years.
Wow.
And I was fortunate enough, my senior year, I was undefeated. And,
okay, and to put that into perspective, because right now in Texas, football is a religion. In Pennsylvania, wrestling is right there with football, isn't it?
Well, it is. Of course, I would say even in Pennsylvania, football is bigger. Wrestling is right there. As far as wrestling is concerned, there is more champion wrestlers come out of the state of Pennsylvania than any other state. Matter of fact, I did a study of the, what can I say, wrestling prowess.
Yes.
Number 1 is Pennsylvania. Number 2 is Ohio. Number 3 is New Jersey. Number 4 is California.
Wow.
And then it's Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa. So if you look across the country, you start in New Jersey. It's New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa.
Wow.
Right across.
Okay, how do you prepare for a match? At that time, were you able to do research on the person that you're going to be competing against?
Unfortunately, no, not in those days. See, this is in the early 60s, and we had...
So you're showing up in the ring, and you don't know exactly what this guy is
going to do exactly, and all I really know is he's going to try to make me look as bad as possible.
Yes.
And of course, that's my goal, is to make him look as bad as possible. So yeah.
So something that really impresses me about you, Ron, is you have a right brain, left brain. You really like the whole package.
Yes.
Because to be an expert in statistics and Six Sigma is one thing. To be an expert in the ring is a completely different set of skills.
Yep.
So I think you were blessed with just a beautiful brain.
Yeah, well, I know it's beautiful, but it works in a number of different ways. Let's just put it that way. Successfully.
Okay, and you have a long-term friendship with a co-author.
Yes.
Who together, how many books have you written?
We've written about 10 books together. Well, 9, because the last one I wrote myself. But yeah, we've written about 10 books together. We've published probably 50 articles together. His name is Roger Hurrell. And Roger came to work for me at DuPont as a summer intern. And so we found out we had common interests, and we've worked together ever since. We've done all that work that I just described. We've never had a substantive argument. We don't always agree on things, but we have a quick discussion, and we know what direction we're going to go. And it's just been a beautiful, beautiful relationship.
It's beautiful. We're going to put some of his book titles on the screen as we scroll down the screen. I want you to just comment on some of these titles because it really has become the Bible, if you will, of Six Sigma.
Okay.
No. Let's stop there.
Well, stop there. Okay. The Leading Six Sigma was the first book, and I described how we wrote this. This was the second edition here. Leading Holistic Improvement was a second edition of that book. Yeah.
And I remember my wife told me that she took a statistics class in college, and the professor said, "Snee, you're not any relation to Ron Snee, are you?" And she immediately fell on the sword and said, "Look, if you're expecting a straight A student, I'm not my dad."
Yeah. She had other skills.
Yes. All right, let's continue down. So we talked about my life growing up on the farm, and this is another one of
Yeah,
the books.
let's talk about strategy for formulation development. One of the first things, jobs I had at DuPont was we're supplying gasoline blenders. And with a lead anti-knock, and so I got into blending, a very unique aspect of design of experiments, and so I published several seminal articles in that field, and then about 2016, Roger and I got around to writing a book which summarizes, our views on that subject. Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories that Victoria has told me is about some of your consulting work. You worked with some huge companies, including USA Today.
Yes. Maybe back up a little bit. I spent 24 years with a DuPont company, and then I went into the consulting business. And after about maybe 10 years or so in the consulting business, I was working for a company called Joyner Associates, and they got a gig with USA Today. And long story short, what I did is I showed them how to reduce the number of errors in the newspaper, and by about 70%.
Wow. Okay. When you say errors in the newspaper, what do you mean?
Wrong names.
Wow.
Wrong numbers. Any kind of an error that you can think of you'd see that. Yeah.
And was there a time when you were advising them on where to place their newspaper boxes, or there was?
Oh, yes.
Share that story.
Oh, that's a great one. One of the women that worked on our team had the job of, at those days, you had newspapers were put in boxes in strategic places. And of course, the whole goal is that you wanted, at the end of the day, you wanted no papers in the box. But if somebody had come to the box, you wanted a paper to be there for them to get. So the question is, in the beginning of the day, how many papers you put in a box? And we figured out, that woman figured out how to do that. And in the first year, we saved them about $6 million.
Are you kidding me?
No, $6 million.
And how do you do that exactly? I mean, you say, okay, don't set it up on this corner. Maybe you set it up over here.
No, it wasn't so much where you placed the boxes.
Yeah.
It was how many newspapers to put in the box. Put in the box. And it was easy. It was typically around one or two newspapers different than what they were doing. But they had so many boxes.
Wow.
So many boxes. Yeah.
And it's amazing that you could save a company that much money.
Well, just to take a little bit further, in the world that I lived in, that I worked in, the whole Six Sigma thing, which came on a little bit later, we had one company, W.R. Grace. In the first year using Six Sigma, we reduced their error rate, or their waste, I guess that's the best way to say it, by about 26 million.
Wow.
And the next year it was like 30 million, and the next year it was 40 million.
Okay, when did Six Sigma become cool in America? Because my memory, and I could be wrong, is that the Japanese kind of had their hand on this before we.
Well, they had their hand on quality improvement in the 80s. That's whenever they were taking our lunch in electronics and automobiles.
Yes.
And then Motorola was losing their electronics business, and they knew that they had to reduce the waste, and they invented the whole thing about Six Sigma. And that went along at a small pace until about the early 90s, early to mid 90s. And then General Electric got on board. And Jack Welch started promoting the idea. And when Jack Welch promoted anything, everybody listened.
Yes.
And it took off from, let's call it 95 on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's now the standard, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it's a standard for improvement. Yeah, Six Sigma is a standard for improvement.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you've received so many accolades that we can't list them on this show, but one of the accolades is you got invited back to your alma mater and you received a major award. Let's go ahead and put that on the screen so you can see this. All right, tell us about this. This is 2020.
2020, and the award was the Entrepreneur of the Year award. And every year, Washington Jefferson gave out this award, and I was fortunate enough to receive it in 2020. And it had started back, 30 years before that.
Wow.
I wasn't the first one to get it. And so just one name, you remember, some of you football fans will remember Dan Rooney,
Yeah.
owner of the Steelers, got the award. He was one guy, and then there was several others. So I was very pleased, very honored.
And you gave a speech in association with getting this award, and you told a story about leadership, and you talked about the lead dog.
Yeah, and this is the key thing about leadership is if you're not the lead dog, the view never changes. So remember this: if you're not the lead dog, view never changes.
I think you got a standing ovation.
Yeah, I did. They like that. Yeah.
And you've done countless interviews. I found one when I was researching for the show. Let's go ahead and put it up on the screen because I think this is an interview with you and Roger.
Yes.
So tell us about this interview. What were you talking about?
Well, I created the idea of statistical thinking, and the reason was that I moved into a management career in DuPont, but I didn't want to leave statistics behind. So I began to think, now, how can I use statistics in my management career? And I developed the whole idea of statistical thinking. And so 2 or 3 years after I published it and promoted it, Roger Hurl, whose picture you saw there a minute ago, got in on the idea, and then we got together, and so we published a book, Statistical Thinking, at Hurl and Snee, and we, along with it, we had software, which we promoted along with it from the JUMP Corporation, which is a part of SAS, which is the Statistical Analysis System. They're out of North Carolina.
Yes.
And so that's why that was an interview that they did.
And
Roger and I.
You and I both learned a few minutes ago, thanks to your granddaughter, that you have not put away your pen and typewriter because you're now supposed to write another book. It's about a children's book related to life on the farm,
right?
That we both learned from.
Yeah, my granddaughter wants me to write a children's book. That'll be quite a challenge.
Put that on your list.
Put that on my list. Yes, exactly. Put that on my list.
Well,
yeah.
let's do this. Ron, as you look back on your career and you want to speak to the next generation, what are some words of wisdom that you can pass on to the next generation of leaders? What do they need to know to be successful?
Well, they need to focus on problem solving because that's what it's about, and it's problem solving that have an impact. So they need to focus on that, and the way to solve problems is through the use of data, and that's where the statistical thinking comes into play. We did a study a long time ago, but I think it still holds today at DuPont. What do leaders look for? And they look for people who can solve problems that put dollars on the bottom line, and that's what people want to look for: big problems that put dollars on the bottom line.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your wisdom with me. My father-in-law, the great Dr. Ron Snee. Thank you for coming on the show. We're going to end with your website, which is sneeassociates.com. The great Dr. Ron Snee. Thanks for coming on the show.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You bet.
My pleasure.
You bet.
Yeah.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.